there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. We are making a new world now. All right. So welcome everyone to Unity Spiritual Community in Citrus Heights, and good morning. We welcome all of you today, all of you joining us on Zoom and on Facebook Live or viewing later. And we know that you are all here by divine appointment. And we breathe into this moment, and we bless you today as Unity Spiritual Community. As here at Unity Spiritual Community, all people are welcome, and we greet you as the perfect and unique expression of God that you are. I'm Lisa Lawson, and I'm Minister of Music here at Unity Spiritual Community. Reverend Carla is taking a week off. Last week was supposed to be her week off, but she came in after all the action at the Capitol to be with us last week. So we asked Sky Nelson to join us. He was here a couple weeks ago with us for music, but he's also a wonderful speaker. So he's going to share with us this morning from Berkeley area.
El Cerrito, Berkeley
El
area.
Cerrito, yeah. And share some of his music again with us. So good morning, Sky, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here and see all your faces again.
Yeah. All right, so we begin today's service with Unity's Daily Word. Today is January 17th, 2021, and the word for today is dream. I turn my dreams into reality. I turn my dreams into reality. Some of the most audacious, bold, history-making events began as dreams, born in the imaginations of those who understood the promise and potential of humanity and worked to realize their vision. Even if my dreams do not change the world, they have the power to change my life. Today, I remember those whose dreams were fueled by their hard work, faith, and determination. I look to their example when my dreams feel far away and I'm running low on hope. I rekindle my dreams through my imagination, which keeps them vivid. My strength helps me remain committed to their realization, and my zeal renews my enthusiasm to work toward creating the life and the world of my dreams. And the scriptures from Joel 2:28. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. I'm going to read that again. You got to take that in. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And as my husband's been laughing about men and women, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I decided to throw in a featurette because we might have extra time otherwise. And I didn't tell you, Sky, but we're going to just talk for a second about the Golden Key. So how many of you have heard of the Golden Key before? Oh, good. Okay. It's an old Unity concept that was written. It was actually written in a pamphlet by the author Emmett Fox, who lived from 1886 to 1951. And he wasn't specifically a Unity person. You know, when New Thought began, there were lots of people who had similar teachers, some of the same teachers, but then they went out and they created their own churches. So Emmett Fox was a teacher of metaphysics who lived from 1886 to 1951, who had a long, successful role as leader of the Divine Science Church of the Healing Christ in New York City. And he spoke weekly to thousands of people, and first in the Hippodrome and later in Carnegie Hall. And he was a friend of Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore. His five-page pamphlet called The Golden Key was first printed in 1931 at the height of the Great Depression. And he called it a practical guide for getting out of trouble. And so Unity brought this back a couple of years ago. I think it's 2018. They printed a pamphlet that includes his kind of edited down version of the Golden Key. And as I remember from reading it, it also includes quite a few articles by people who have brought this concept into their life. So if you would like to have that pamphlet, you can contact Unity online probably, and you can get a free copy. So here is a description. I'm going to kind of paraphrase his article for you so you can understand. He says, as for the actual method of working, like all fundamental things, it is simplicity itself. All you have to do is this. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. That's the golden key. This is the complete rule. And if only you will do this, the trouble, whatever it is, will disappear. It makes no difference what kind of trouble it is. It may be a big thing or a little thing. It may concern health, finance, a lawsuit, a quarrel, an accident, or anything else conceivable. But whatever it is, stop thinking about it and think of God instead. That's all you have to do. Wow. He says, do not try to form a picture of God, which is impossible. Work by rehearsing anything and everything you know about God. God is wisdom, truth, inconceivable love. God is present everywhere, has infinite power, knows everything, and so on. And it doesn't matter how well you think you understand these things, just go over them. And he says you must stop thinking of the trouble, whatever it is. The rule is to think about God. And if you're thinking of your difficulty, you're not thinking about your God. If you're continually glancing over your shoulder in order to see how things are going, that's fatal because it's thinking of the trouble and you have to think of God and nothing else. Your object is to drive the thought of the difficulty out of your consciousness for a few moments at least, substituting for it the thought of God. If you can become so absorbed in this consideration of the spiritual world that you forget for a while about the difficulty, you will find that you are safely and comfortably out of your difficulty, that your demonstration is made. So you're not trying to influence the situation or a person or their conduct in any way, but you do influence him by being him or her by having golden keyed him. He says to do that several times a day, but then after you do that, you have to drop all thought of the matter until the next time, and that's really, really important. So by repeating these statements, just always switch it back to God. And don't try to think in advance what the solution to your difficulty will be. This is called outlining and will only delay the demonstration. Leave the question of ways and means to God. You want to get out of your difficulty. That's sufficient. You do your half. And God will never fail to do God's. So that is the golden key. I forgot I was going to share something while I did that, but that was the front of the booklet that Unity just put out recently. It's a really nice picture. So I encourage you to get that booklet if you're interested. And at this point, we are going to move into our first song, which is called I Give My Thanks to God. You may or may not remember this song because we haven't done it for a little while, but I invite you to sing it with me. I am so thankful for every blessed moment, and I live in gratitude. My heart is open, my spirit is rejoicing, and I live in gratitude. I give my thanks to God. 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 I am so thankful for every blessed moment, and I sing in gratitude. My heart is open, my spirit is rejoicing, and I live in gratitude. I give my thanks to God. 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 I am so grateful for every blessed moment, and I give in gratitude. My heart is open, my spirit is rejoicing, and I give in gratitude. I give my thanks to God. 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 And now we do turn in thanks, drawing all of our attention to our heart space this morning as we bring into our consciousness our own prayer requests for ourselves and for our loved ones and for the world. We have those concerns. We remember to turn our thoughts to God. We remember the ever-presence of God and the complete power of God, the love of God, the peace of God. We see our people, the people that we love, and our world and our country enfolded in this presence and this power and this peace this morning. And we release all of our concerns into this loving presence, giving thanks, and so it is. Amen.
And so it is. Amen.
And I'm just going to lead now into a time of meditation. Oh, Spirit, guide me deep inside me. Take me to my heart place
And as you welcome this moment of silence, looking through the lens of your thoughts and your feelings, perceiving the world as only you do, as you. Take this time to polish that mirror. Take this time to clean off that lens. In quiet, ask for clarity. Ask for guidance to lead you through your challenges of this day and this week. And open yourself to the clarity and guidance from within. And offer up some thanks, some gratitude for what you've experienced right now. Knowing that you will take this forward into your day with grace. I want to welcome you back into the room here with us on this Martin Luther King weekend as we ponder democracy and freedom, equity, inclusivity. Is my sound good, Lisa? Am I coming through? Brian? Wonderful. Thank you. This is a song that I wrote called We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. Our love is bigger than the strongest of arguments. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We won't believe what we're told to believe in, 'cause we are the ones we've been waiting for. It's President's Day, and I drive to the water. I find myself laughing at nothing. I stare at the seagulls smiling above me, crying at the top of their lungs. They just do what they can. They don't worry about the men and the women on the beach who throw stones. They laugh 'cause they want to and sing 'cause they have to feed their souls. Our love is bigger than the strongest of arguments. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We won't believe what we're told to believe in. We are the ones we've been waiting for. I've drawn within boundaries, taken just what was offered, and found myself grasping at nothing. God, won't you give me the life I deserve? I have struggled enough, doesn't it show? But I get no reply, and I stare through the silence like an arrow can tear through a heart. I'm gonna live 'cause it's here, gonna love 'cause it's now, gonna feed my soul. Our love is bigger than the strongest of arguments. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We won't believe what we're told to believe in, 'cause we are the ones we've been waiting for. We twist and we turn to avoid all the warnings, but this is our chance to rise up and be more than history's turn of the screw. It's different this time. Our love is bigger than the strongest of arguments. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We won't believe what we're told to believe in, 'cause we are the ones, are the ones, are the ones. We are the ones, are the ones, are the ones. We are the ones, are the ones that we've been waiting for. Blessings to everyone here this morning. Thank you. Thank you. I was inspired over the break to read a story about a man named Elwyn Wilson. Elwyn Wilson was watching the television in 2009 when he was watching President Barack Obama's inauguration. And in the background of President Obama, he saw another man, Congressman John Lewis. And you may be familiar with Congressman John Lewis. He's an iconic civil rights leader who was elected to Congress about 30 years ago and served his whole adult life in Congress. And he died in 2020. So we honored him last year and we honor him today. And Elwyn Wilson was particularly moved when he saw John Lewis on stage at the inauguration, because he realized he wanted to make amends. See, it was him 40 years ago who had confronted John Lewis, a young John Lewis, who was a freedom rider with the social justice movement, the Freedom Riders. And John Lewis had been participating. I think he left college in order to join the Freedom Riders. He took a big risk. It says on his application, this is the biggest decision of my life, to join Freedom Riders right now, and to leave behind what I know. And the Freedom Riders were a social justice sit-in movement to occupy interstate buses, because the Supreme Court had ruled in Boynton versus Virginia in 1960 that segregation was illegal. And the Freedom Riders wanted to bring to the forefront of every American's mind the fact that this was not being enforced. In other words, segregation was allowed to occur even though it was illegal under the Supreme Court. And so they rode interstate buses into states where segregation was being practiced and faced the consequences of sometimes violence and persecution. So John Lewis steps off a bus in South Carolina in the early 1960s, and with a group of other black people and their allies, and is approached by a group of young white men who are associated with the KKK and attacked and beaten in a terminal that's segregated, a bus terminal. And so this was a dark moment in American history, a dark moment in the life of Mr. Wilson. And he, not too long after that, actually came to the realization that that was not how he wanted to, that's not true to his nature. He regretted that experience. And it was a long time before he had the chance to make any amends for that. But in 2009, 40 years later, he's watching John Lewis on stage, and he realizes, I need to do something about this. And he had long left ties with the KKK and left behind those friends, and was wanting to tie up that chapter of his history. So he calls John Lewis in the Capitol and gets invited to go to Washington. And in Washington, they sit down together, and John Lewis remembers him specifically, and they reconnect, and Mr. Wilson apologizes for his actions, and Congressman Lewis accepts his apology. And they pray together, they reconnect, they kindle a friendship which has lasted. And they went on Oprah a few years later and shared this story. And Congressman Lewis said that this is the only person who's engaged in violence with him who's ever apologized. So it was a deeply meaningful experience for both of them. And it touches me deeply about the courage of all the people involved. And the heroes of the story are the freedom riders who risked their life and their well-being to engage in civil disobedience, to bring awareness of injustice to all of us. And those are the heroes of this story. And there's also a hero in Mr. Wilson, who's come forth to do what he felt he needed to do to get it right with himself. And I want to talk about what this means to get it right with ourselves. The motivation, for him, I can't imagine the motivation was, to get approval from his peers. He had to leave behind his peers in order to get it right with himself. He had to leave behind, it wasn't for economic benefit. It wasn't to be famous on Oprah, because when he was on Oprah, he was, probably experiencing embarrassment and remorse for his actions. It took a lot of humility to appear on national television and tell your story. A story in which he was the antagonist originally. So it points to a deeper place in ourselves that needs to get it right with ourselves, that has this motivation to make choices which align with who we are, make choices which align with our values. And that's what I have been researching these many years in studying synchronicity, because synchronicity to me is a way in which the universe responds to us. And it highlights the choices that we make. It emphasizes the importance of navigating life through making decisions, through making choices that are often difficult. In the moment, Elwyn Wilson, back in the 60s, made a choice to be violent because he believed in his mind at that time that the color of a person's skin determined their value in a hierarchical way. And so he was acting from a choice that reinforced his belief systems and was guided by his belief systems. And then later he had a change of heart, and he was able to have a different set of beliefs and make a different choice. And we're all faced with choices of varying difficulties all the time. And I think if we understood how to make good choices, we would. I mean, Elwyn Wilson wanted to make a good choice back then, and he wanted to make a good choice now. But what appears to be a good choice changes over time. If we're living with a lens or a filter that takes in the information around us and processes it in ways that make sense to us. And yet our sense-making abilities change over time, right? We don't always have the same set of information to make sense of the world. And so as we grow, as we evolve ourselves, as we get older in life, hopefully we are evolving our capacity to make sense of our world in ways that are more refined, more connecting, more heart-opening. And I love that about this story where Elwyn Wilson comes to a place later in life where he is able to make this huge step of reconciliation and correct something that he did that he felt was wrong in the past. So I want to bring awareness to this idea of choices. We are faced with choice, and I want to couch it in a frame of wholeness. Because what I study, and the topic of my new book called Leap to Wholeness, is how science, as a scientist, you might think, oh, he's in his head and he's academic. But it makes sense because the word science actually means to cut apart. Scindere or scire, the Latin root is to know or to cut. And so the implication is that we know things by separating them out into their pieces and then analyzing each piece, and then we know something. And that is one way of knowing. But my research has been drawn since I was in college many, many years ago to this idea of holism, wholeness, for a few reasons. One, because I grew up in a spiritual tradition with the eminent Swami Satchidananda, where I learned that this was a way to see the world, that I as a person had an essence which was greater than just being a lone set of molecules spinning around in space. So I learned that there's a sense of conscious awareness which makes each of us important in the world. And I also learned about things like holograms. I don't know if you've experienced what a hologram looks like, but it's this three-dimensional thing that exists on a two-dimensional piece of paper. And this idea captured my imagination, that we can have a 3 dimensions sort of imagined in space when there's only a flat piece of paper. Because there's wholeness to it. If you cut a hologram in half, you don't get half of a hologram. You still see the whole thing. Because if you say you have a picture of a face, you look to the side, you see the face from the side. In a photograph, you wouldn't see it from the side. You just see the same thing. But in a hologram, you see that it's like it's a real object sitting there floating. And when you cut it in half and you look to the side, you still see the part on the other side. It's like looking through a window. So even if you don't understand what a hologram is like, I want you to understand that it illustrates wholeness. It illustrates that there are certain things that you cannot divide. They retain their essence. And this illustrates or points to a whole different way of looking at our lives and our cosmos. Instead of thinking that we need to create everything in life from scratch, instead of thinking that we need to create our bank account from zero up to whatever it is, instead of thinking that I need to if I want to be a writer, or if I want to be a teacher, or if I want to be a lawyer, or if I want to be a parent, that I have to make those things happen. What wholeness, a world of holism, points to is that these things are already happening. They're already on their way. And what we have to do to get to these things is to choose. So our main power as creators is as choosers. I want you to think of a tree as the image here. Everyone, take a second and stretch your arms up to the sky like a tree if you can, if it's comfortable for you. So you are this tree, and this tree is your life up above you, stretching out. All the branches are your possibilities. And there are many of them. I like to say that there are not infinite possibilities. I'm going to break with tradition a little bit. There's a lot more possibilities than you realize on any given day, because your tree is leading from where you are right now, grounded in your reality, outward into future possibilities. And on this tree are many different possible experiences. So what we're doing is choosing between these pre-existing possibilities. This is what's called the multiverse in the world of quantum mechanics. There is such a thing that's pretty well established, like it's a mainstream way of thinking, that there's a multiverse, many different versions of the possible reality. And we're constantly branching into these different branches, but we end up, how do we know which branch we're going to end up on? How do we end up on the branch that we want to be on? Well, that's the key to choice. How do we choose to go in the one direction where we experience well-being versus another direction where we experience quarrels and frustration? And we're going to do both at some of the time. We never get perfect at this process, but we can begin to master or get closer to mastering the decision-making process. How do we make choices? And in short, those choices, I think it's just pretty clear that it's about coming from the heart to an extent. When we can feel more about what's authentically happening for us, I'll just cut to the chase here. When we can feel our choices, We're more likely to open to the possibilities that we might not have seen otherwise, and make choices that lead to more wholeness. I'll give you a simple example. If I am in the kitchen and my partner says to me, I wish you wouldn't leave your dishes in the sink, I wish you'd put them in the dishwasher, I have a choice to go towards wholeness or towards separation. If I say, I was too busy to put in the dishwasher, why are you on my case? Then, you don't understand how busy I was. Like, that's something I've felt before, right? You don't understand me. This is, why are you attacking me? But that's a defensiveness. That's a separation. I'm separate from this person. I'm not understanding what their need is. I'm not expressing what my need is. And so if I can get into the feeling of I don't feel seen right now, then suddenly I have more choices, more options. So the central piece there is to feel what we're feeling authentically, to be able to open quickly to our real experience and come from there. Because then I can respond, oh, I don't need to be defensive here. Yes, okay, I hear your request. I'll do my best to do that. And so then we've made a choice that leads towards wholeness. The relationship is more whole. I myself am more whole. I'm not divided against myself. I'm not having to defend myself. Versus a choice that could have led to more conflict. So this is a very simple example of where these choices lead one way or the other on the branches of this tree of possibilities, this tree of the multiverse. And then you look back at Elwyn Wilson and his choice, his earlier choice where he was violent, and his later choice where he made amends. And I think we see the same pattern, the same questions arising. How am I really feeling right now? What is stuck in me that I need to experience before I react to it unconsciously? In my research, I've come to acknowledge the importance of patterns, the patterns of habit, of thought, the patterns of behavior that guide us and influence us. And I think of these as layers layered on top of our wholeness. At the core, we are this whole being of who we are. Our personality, our beautiful personality, the child that we were once when we first came into the world, with all these beautiful qualities of expression, these ways of expressing ourselves in the world verbally and artistically and emotionally. And they get layered on with different ways that we've learned to control that from experiences that we have. There are some experiences that Elwyn Wilson had which made him feel hateful towards Black people, maybe. And that is what drove his experience for a period of time. And then he peeled back those layers and realized that there was something beneath that was more authentic and changed his belief structures. And I think we can all do that kind of surgery on ourselves, gradually seeing the ways in which we are filtering information coming into our minds and into our hearts. We're filtering it before it gets there. When my partner says, can you please put your dishes in the dishwasher instead of the sink? And I filter that through this lens of, you don't understand me, you don't see me, then my reaction is one thing. But if I can clean off that lens, peel back that filter so that I can see clearly, I might see her expressing a need, a desire, a love, expressing a way that she would feel more safe and more whole in her own home that I can help facilitate. And so I see different information based on what filters are in my field of view. Now, a filter, what is a filter? A filter is like a lens. A lens is a type of filter. A filter is anything that takes incoming information and changes it in some way. And we use filters all the time, right? Because we're receiving, 100 million pieces of information at any given second, and we process that down to just receiving a few that we process. We just make sense of a few different things at a time. So we have to filter out information. So I guess the question is more about which information are we going to filter, and how do we become better at seeing our filters? How do we become better at seeing our own mind at work? The ways in which we might second guess ourselves or doubt ourselves. it's happening in sort of this hidden layer that we can't even see because we're looking right through it. And this ties back to my research. This is why I love doing this research. As a physicist, I can actually study how filters affect our lives. And I want to be able to tie those together for you so that you see the amazing connection between science and our personal lives. Did you know that light, when traveling from the sun to Earth, well, for one thing, did you know that it takes 8 minutes? Okay, that might be new information to you, but that's sort of old news. What is actually also true, which is mind-blowing, is that there is a frame from which there's no separation at all between the Earth and the sun. Because light itself is this timeless entity. In physics, we talk about the interval between two events, between light leaving the sun and light hitting your eye. Those are two separate events, right? One happens first, the other happens later. But in physics, those two events are separated by an interval of 0. That's a technical way of saying that there's no separation between the starting and the end point of the light. In other words, there's no separation between you and the sun. There's a chemist named Gilbert Lewis who wrote about this in the 30s. He said, we should use this term virtual contact. You are in virtual contact with everything that is illuminating you with light. Because there's no separation. The light travels across spaces of no separation. It's very hard to talk about with any kind of reasonable ideas of space and time. So the best thing we can do is deconstruct our idea of space and time and understand that there is a timeless aspect to the cosmos. And in that timeless aspect is wholeness. If I'm not separate from the sun, if I'm not separate from you, there's a wholeness that emerges from that. If I'm not separate from my future self or my past self, there's a wholeness that emerges from that. And that comes back to the wholeness of how do we create something in the world? On this branching tree of all the possibilities that exist, that's the whole reality. How do we filter out those branches that we don't want to experience as much so that what's left are the branches that we came to experience? How do we filter out the branches of frustration? If you're like me, you experienced frustration this week. So there's ample opportunity to say, oh, that's a branch. I could feel that frustration. What other branches are available to me right now in this situation? What other choices of response, of emotion could I have in this simple moment, which would lead me onto a different branch? Both branches exist. You don't have to create them. You don't have to create the goodness, and you don't have to create the frustration. It's how you respond to the situation that determines which of these branches you end up manifesting. So I invite you to take a breath with me, maybe if you want to close your eyes, and ask yourself this question. What is a feeling that I want to feel more of in 2021? What is a feeling I would like to feel more of in 2021? What is an experience I would like to have more frequently in 2021? So I trust that each of you found something there. And I want to give you 2 steps to how I think synchronicity can manifest more in your life. The first is to see this as a process that's happening. Whatever you choose to do in any given moment is building momentum towards a certain part of the tree. You're moving in that way. So don't throw away any actions. Nothing is throwaway. Every choice you make is leading meaningfully towards something, and is it aligned with who you want to be? Is your every action aligned with your goals? Your goals of being a whole person, whatever that is for you, whether it's professional, whether it's a personal relationship aspect of yourself, whether it's your health. Each choice is leading in a direction and building momentum in some direction. So recognizing that this process, which I call meaningful history selection, the selection of meaningful branches of the tree, this process is always at work in our lives. And so the first step is to get aligned. Make sure that you're just on a regular basis choosing things that align for you with where you want to be, with what you want to feel more of. Okay, so that's the first step. And then if you do that effectively, if you're really doing that, then the second piece is to trust that that's happening. And this involves humility. It involves patience. Because a lot of times, and this is what I've found, and I think what stops people from experiencing more synchronicity, a lot of times we don't recognize synchronicity as itself. Because we get frustrated when things don't work, when our car breaks down or a relationship goes bad or an argument happens. We feel like that's getting out of synchronicity. But if we are following the first step, if we're in alignment with where we want to go in our lives, then everything is serving. Everything is synchronicity. And so when that piece of technology doesn't work in a meeting, it's providing an opportunity for you to maybe experience less frustration or to channel your energy differently. Or maybe it's giving someone else an opportunity to speak up in your stead. And so you're serving a purpose that's greater than what you thought it was. So if we're in alignment with ourselves, then we can come to trust and be humble that everything that's happening is of service to the greater picture. And so then we become more welcoming of challenges. We come to see things not from a victim point of view, but from a point of view more like, I'm excited to see what comes next. I'm not going to whitewash or paint over the problems that I have. I'm going to always experience problems. I think they're necessary to move me forward. But that's not going to stop me from claiming my excitement for whatever's coming. I think being able to hold both of these is part of wholeness. To hold the challenges that we face, the struggles and the pain, without having it negate the excitement for what's going to come next, for our future. And so from that, I think comes more gratitude too, right? Because you can't feel excited without gratitude, or maybe you can't feel gratitude without excitement. Like they go together. If I'm excited about the future, I'm automatically grateful for what is and what may be. And from that place of gratitude, we come back to, I think, how do we make decisions which bring us to that branch that we want to be at, bring us to that world expression that we want. I think we have to make those individual choices of how we respond in each moment with more gratitude, with more self-love and self-compassion. I want to break down that word self-compassion and self-love a little bit, because what does that really mean? One way to think of that is, how does it feel in your chest, your physical sensation in your body? So self-love is the experience of feeling whatever sensations you're feeling. It's not a particular feeling. It's the allowing of all feelings. The willingness to be with what is happening inside your body so that you can move through that to whatever's next. That's a way of praying and saying gratitude for excitement for what's going to come next. This is what a lot of people call flow, the natural movement through an experience to the next experience rather than getting stuck in your experience. So maybe I've given you a lot of pieces here to put together. I want to wrap it into, bring it back to where we started. Light inspires me to look at the world through this wholeness. We are connected to everything around us from a certain perspective. And light is, goes with lenses, right? We each have lenses in our eyes which filter the information, which bend light so we can see. And those lenses are coloring or changing what we see according to our beliefs and our preferences. And so we're practicing becoming less or more aware of what those preferences are, what those beliefs are. I'm reading a book right now called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. And it's a very powerful and I think important book. I want to read you a little bit. And I'm trying to have this conversation around racism more in my life because it's important for me as a white man to be bringing up this topic more in my life with people. And there's a very powerful sentence here or description here that I think is valuable to share. And I want to first define a word called anti-racism, which is the title of the book. Anti-racism points to the idea that there's no neutral in racism or anti-racism. There's no not racist. We're all part of a spectrum of being racist or anti-racist at different times. And it's not like we can just say, I'm not involved in that conversation. We are all involved in the conversation. So this next reading talks about where do we put ourselves? And it speaks to belief, the layers of filters that we have. Kendi says, racist and anti-racist are like peelable name tags that are placed and replaced based on what someone is doing or not doing, supporting or expressing in each moment. These are not permanent tattoos. No one becomes a racist or an anti-racist. We can only strive to be one or the other. We can unknowingly strive to be a racist, and we can knowingly strive to be an anti-racist. Like fighting an addiction, being an anti-racist requires persistent self-awareness, constant self-criticism, and regular self-examination. So he's reminding us that who we are is not a tattoo. Who we are is a peelable name tag. We take it on and off with every action we make, with every choice that we make. And this goes for all aspects of our lives. Who we are underneath our layers, I'm not sure we even know who that is. It comes out when we express ourselves fully, when we peel back those name tags, those identities, and we become more authentically expressive of whatever's underneath there for us to express in the world as ourselves. So to close, I'd like to invite you to imagine someone handing you your life today, your life with your bank account, with your house, with your friends, with your family, with your job situation, with whatever is true for you. And not with any of the preconceived notions about it. Okay, so that's what we're leaving behind for a moment. You just plopped into this planet right now from outer space, given your life today. What would you do with it? Are there things that you would do to make it right with yourself, like Elwyn Wilson did, to make it right with himself about his past experience? Are there things you would do that that would bring out the excitement for your future, that would get rid of the sort of part of yourself that might be feeling like a victim or stuck, and just say, wow, here's what I can do today. I've got these opportunities in my life. What are those for you? I'm going to examine what they are for me. And I invite you to just look with these fresh eyes without the filter there and see what's possible for you today. Do what you can to refresh your excitement for the moment that we have and be excited for what's next. So in that spirit, I want to sing a song by three great composers, Jan Garrett, J.D. Martin, and Esther Nicholson, called I Believe This Belongs to You. It's about these filters that we take and giving back other people's filters to them so that we don't own layers that are not ourselves. I once heard a powerful story about a man who stood in his truth. with such conviction in who he was. He would not be moved. Someone stepped out of the crowd and said, "Are you Martin Luther King?" He said, "Yes, I am." And the well-dressed man spit on him. King took out his handkerchief and wiped the hate from his suit, gave it back to the man and said, "I believe this belongs to you. I will lift you up, do what I can do. I feel your heart and I know your pain. I have been there too. I will hold you high while you do what you have to do. I am clear who is standing here. I believe this belongs to you." I once had a powerful story that I used to carry around. I thought it was you all this time, held my spirit down. Now I see the truth of who I came here to be. You are my angel in disguise, not my enemy. I thank you for the part you played in this dance that we had to do. Give you back your freedom now. I believe this belongs to you. I will lift you up and do what I can do. I feel your heart and I know your pain. I have been there too. I will hold you high while you do what you have to do. I give you back your freedom now. I believe it belongs to you. I will hold you up while you do what you have to do. I am clear who is standing here. I believe this belongs to you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sky. I really appreciated your words and your music. And I want to just give everybody a chance to know where they can find this. And I know your music's at skynelson.com. And
Yes.
I see that your books are available widely on the internet. But you do have a website. Is that correct?
Yes, my new book is called Leap to Wholeness, How the World is Programmed to Help Us Heal, Grow, and Adapt. And you can find it at leaptowholenessbook.com. That's coming out March 2nd, just in a month from now.
Leap to Whole. I'm putting this in the chat.
And you can also find my previous book, Living in Flow. And all of that and more is available at synchronicityinstitute.com.
Synchro. Okay, I'm going to try to get this right. Okay, so I encourage you to find his music and his books online. And,
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. So we are grateful for Sky's presence, and we are so grateful for you all joining us in community today, and for your offerings, which do support our church on a weekly basis. We are so grateful to all of you. I'm going to just bring up a slide to remind you of where you may make your offerings. And that would be at our P.O. Box is 2176, Citrus Heights 95611, or you can find a donate link in either the newsletter that we send out on a weekly basis or on our website. So thank you again for your support. And I would like to share a prosperity affirmation today. This is, I have faith in the prospering power of God as it works mightily in me now. I have faith that all things are now working together for my good, and I am working with them in the wisdom and power of Spirit. I have faith in the perfect outcome of every situation in my life, for God is in absolute control. My faith makes me whole. Wow, that goes right along with that talk, doesn't it? That was the synchronicity there. All right. Yeah, and now we bless these offerings, knowing that divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I choose to give, and all that I am open to receive. And so it is. Amen. We just have a few, we don't have very many announcements today. The first is that our Artist's Way class, which is on Zoom on Wednesday nights, did begin last week, and we had a number of participants, and you're welcome to join that class still or to drop in on a Wednesday night. It's only $5 a class, so it's quite a deal. And if you're not familiar with the Artist's Way, just a wonderful way to develop your own creativity and your expression in a wonderful community of support. Also, Heart Dream will be joining us on January 31st, as I'll have that week off. So at this time, we're going to move into our closing songs, and I want to invite you to stay and participate in the chat time. We'll turn off the recordings, and you'll have a chance to ask Sky any questions and let us know how you're doing. So please join me now in singing our peace song, Weave. Oops. Okay, I don't have it in there. So we'll do that next. Okay. Together in unity and love. Weave us together. Weave us together, together, and let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. Creator, family, all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyful vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let we know that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.